Good morning, YouTube. It's Friday, August 24th, and it's currently midnight 30. And this video is in response to a video that one of my favorite YouTube vloggers, Hank Green, made, which is about something that I have been discussing recently, which is whether or not Generation Y is more apathetic than the generations before it. So last weekend I was staying with my grandparents, and one of them stated that my generation is the laziest and most apathetic generation they've ever seen. And it's not just both sets of my grandparents that I've heard this from, but also other people who are several decades my senior, and even people from my own generation. And honestly, I find this sort of assumption to be very inaccurate, and it concerns me. Here's why. Reason number one. I'm not quite sure how we can measure apathy. What are we going to do? Survey everyone in Generation Y? Take a poll and find out what percentage of them volunteer? Or how many attend college and have bachelor degrees? If you have said yes to any of those things, not only do the statistics show that volunteer work has doubled from Generation X to Generation Y, but a whopping 63% of Generation Yers have at least a bachelor's degree. That's more than any other generation previously. Reason number two. Of the majority of people that I have heard this anecdote from, many of them are disconnected from the generation itself. They use the internet less, they're more inclined to listen to questionable news sources, and in many instances when they're arguing that we're apathetic, they're supporting their own arguments using anecdotal stories from their experiences with Generation Y. Now, Hank mentioned that maybe it's not that Generation Y is less active, but perhaps they're active in different ways. And I find this to be very accurate. For example, much of the social justice movement has moved to the internet. The coordination of protests and the discourse of information amongst many groups no longer take place in a public meeting, but are instead taking place on forums, comment threads, and many social networking sites. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing either. It's in this way that the internet becomes a medium that enables better communication and social change across the world. The internet is an enabler of caring. It is the exact enemy of apathy because it allows so many people access to information that they can care about, access that they would otherwise not have. So it isn't necessarily a question of whether we're less active, but a question of how our activity has changed and where it takes place. And you can see the same sort of change for a variety of movements, such as environmentalism, LGBT rights, politics. Out of this new medium have arrived new ideas that we otherwise would not have if it weren't for the internet. Lastly, Generation Y is a generation with the highest level of college attendance out of any generation so far. And I think that really says something, especially considering that if you live in America, you have to shovel out money just to get a 2-year degree in something. The reason for this increase in college attendance is because college degrees, especially master's degrees, are needed to find work more than ever. In generations past, many could get decent careers just with a high school diploma. Well, this is no longer the case, and even if you do get a master's degree in something, it is not a guarantee to a job like it used to be. But we are victims of both a bad economy and a work landscape that requires experience to do anything high level, which a fresh graduate often does not have. For the first time, we have seen waiters with PhDs, unemployed law graduates, and more. We aren't lazy, we've just inherited a broken promise. And I will probably close this video by stating that those who are saying that Generation Y is a generation of apathy are basing it off of anecdotes rather than the statistical information that we have available. When I lived in Muncie, Newcastle, Indiana, and Kingsport, Tennessee, I would have agreed with you that my generation was one of apathy, and it would have merely been a result of exposure to rather poor anecdotes. However, individual experience is often not indicative of societal trends. But now that I'm out of those places, living in Dayton, surrounded by a variety of demographics, and have enriched my own cultural awareness by travel, I believe that I can say that our generation is anything but apathetic. YouTube, I'll see you next time.